So you're driving down the road with you and your friends, you see this beautiful home on a corner lot, and you start to wonder to yourself, I wonder how much that home is worth. So you get the address, type it into Zillow, and you see that the Zestimate shows that it's $2.5 million. However, now this is starting to get your wheels turning, and you start wondering, I wonder how much my home is worth. How much is my parents' house worth? How much are my friends' homes worth? And before you know it, you've looked at the value of all of your family, friends, and yes, even exes' homes, but now you're starting to wonder, wait a second, are these estimates actually accurate, and what actually goes into these estimates? And if I'm thinking of actually buying or selling a home in the future, are these something that I can trust? Well, that's exactly what we're going to be talking about on today's episode. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I really do appreciate it. If this is your first time here, hi, I'm Josh Alexander, your local Orange County real estate agent, as well as host of Orange County Housing Market News, your one-stop shop for all things Orange County real estate. So if you're thinking of buying or selling a home, make sure you hit that subscribe button because I put out new tricks and tips every single week to help you win in today's market. So like I said at the beginning, today's episode is all about Zestimates. So let's go ahead and get into it. So in today's episode, we're going to answer three main questions. Number one, what is a Zestimate and what is it actually based off of? Number two, how accurate are they in two different scenarios? One, when the house is not on the market, and then two, when the house is on the market, and those are two very different numbers, and we'll also go over why that is. And then number three, if you're thinking of buying and selling a home, when you should put a little bit more stock into what the actual Zestimate is saying versus when you should stay away from it. And then as a cherry on top, at the very end, we're going to go over if your information on Zillow is wrong and you think your Zestimate is wrong, how you can go about fixing that. So let's go ahead and first talk about what Zestimates are. Now, the nice thing about Zillow is they actually provide a full page breaking down a bunch of information about their Zestimate process. So this is what their page says about how they come up with the Zestimates on the property. So Zillow's algorithm to get that estimated price for your home is going to be based on the square footage of the home, the location of the home, how many bed and bathrooms does it have, any prior sales information, tax assessments, market trends, and then seasonality. So they take all that information and combined it to get your Zestimate on the home. So really, when it comes to the way that Zillow creates the estimates for their homes, there's nothing really groundbreaking here. They're using a lot of public information as well as historical data to be able to give the best idea they can of what your home might be worth. Now, here is where things get really interesting as a realtor. So on that same Zestimate page that goes over everything, they also break down how accurate their Zestimates are based on either the state or major cities. So we live in Orange County, and they end up clumping most of LA and Orange County together in this, and that's the data that we're going to use. But if you live in a different state or major city, you can go onto this page. I'll put a link below, and you can find out the data for your specific location, so that way you have more accurate information. So again, for Orange County, LA area, this is how it breaks down in terms of how accurate Zillow's estimates are. So like I said before, they have two different categories in terms of how accurate they are. They have the off-market and the on-market. So first, let's go ahead and start with off-market, which means any property that's not currently listed on the MLS. And the way they calculate these percentages is they basically take whatever number their Zestimate was on the property before it hit the market, but once it hits the market and sells, what is the difference between the sales price and the original Zestimate they had before it actually hit the market? So let's go ahead and break down the stats for LA and Orange County area. So right now in LA and Orange County, about 41% of all homes that Zillow has a Zestimate for are coming within about 5% of the eventual sale price. So this just shows that 60% of all of those homes that have a Zestimate are going to be off by more than 5% once they eventually hit the market and sell. So let's continue going even further. So right now, about 68% of all homes are selling within about 10% of the asking price. So if you're looking at that Zestimate for your home before it hits the market, there is a 1 in 3 chance that that number is off by 10% or more. And in Orange County, when the average home price is right around $1.2 million, that 10% could be a huge number and really completely skew how much your home is worth. And they go ahead and break it down one more time further by saying that about 89% of homes are going to be within 20% of that eventual purchase price. So again, that means 1 in 10 homes could be off by 20% or more, which is a huge number. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at what happens when your home actually hits the market so buyers can see it on Zillow. There's a Zestimate right next to it. Do those numbers get more accurate? So about 79% of the time, the house is going to sell within 5% of what that Zestimate number is. Now, just to give you that contrast again, before it hit the market, that was only 41%. So it basically doubled that number once it actually hits the market. Now, as you work your way down, 94% of the time, it's going to sell within 10% of that Zestimate price. And then 99% of the time, it's going to sell within 20%. So it's pretty clear to see that Zillow's Zestimates rapidly improve their accuracy once you go from off market to on market. But why is that? It all comes down to data. So number one, when someone places a home on the market, they obviously have a price attached to that. So usually they have a real estate agent that does the comps correctly and is able to determine the price. They place it on the market for the correct value, and Zillow is going to take that into account. And if you've ever sold a home before and looked at your Zestimate before it hit the market, you'll be able to see that one day it might be $300,000 lower. The next day it hits the market and that Zestimate jumps right up to whatever the asking price was of the home. I don't think that's a coincidence that once you get that asking price on the home inputted into the system, Zillow adjusts accordingly. And another reason is that once you put that listing into Zillow, Zillow is now going to have access to the description of the property, any updated information it may not have had before, as well as all the photos of the property as well. So Zillow's algorithm is going to be smart enough to be able to scan through the photos and figure out, is the kitchen updated? Is the bathroom updated? Do they have a pool in the home? A lot of these things that they might not be able to tell just from looking at the raw data is going to become immediately visible with those photos as well. So not only do they have a professional's opinion of the price, but they also now have the description, the photos, and any updated home information they need to give you a more accurate number. Now, once the home hits the market and they have all that new data, Zillow doesn't just stop adjusting its estimate from there, it continues to adapt. So if it sees a bunch of web traffic going to that site, checking out your home, and people are spending a long time on that page, they're going to take that into account and maybe raise this estimate a little bit higher. However, if you have the opposite, where you're not having a lot of people on the page, your home is sitting on the market for weeks, that Zestimate is going to gradually decrease over time because they know the demand is not there for it. So it's a dynamic number. It's not just going to pop up when it's listed and stay there. It's going to continually adjust based on the different factors and data it's getting over the life of that home sitting on the market in the MLS. Now, the last thing I want to talk about on the data side of things before we go over what can make the Zestimate more or less accurate is that as an agent, one of the data points that we have access to is something called sales to list price ratio. And that basically means the difference between what the home sold at and what the home was listed at. Now, typically in Orange County, that sales to list price ratio ranges anywhere from 97 to about 102. So usually that sales to list price ratio is only going to be off by about 5% in most cases, which just means that the Zillow Zestimate is not really any better than what you see coming out of the agent information we get as well. So only reason I brought this up is because yes, Zillow's Zestimates get more accurate once the home hits the market. However, it's not mind-blowing accuracy. It's accuracy that is very standard with what we see on a typical home sale in Orange County, which is usually when you list it, it's only going to sell for about 2 to 3% difference, either up or down on any given month within Orange County. So yes, they're more accurate, but it's not something that's going to be better than the data we already have available to us. So now let's go ahead and go over the question that a lot of you probably have is, when should I rely on that Zestimate a little bit more heavily versus when I should just not touch it with a 10-foot pole? So let's go ahead and look at the off-market side of things first. So let's say you're a homeowner, you want to figure out what your property might be worth, so you head over to Zillow and look at the Zestimate. Well, Zillow, again, is just collecting all the general data and trying to give you an average of what your home is worth. So one of the easiest ways to determine how accurate that Zestimate might be is you can head over to Zillow and look up the past sales in the neighborhood over the last 6 to 8 months and just look at the photos and see the general conditions of the home. Are those homes in similar condition as yours, or are all of them fully updated updated, ready to go, move-in ready, and your home needs a lot of work. The closer your home is to the general condition of the rest of the homes in the neighborhood, the more accurate that Zestimate's going to be. However, if you have the most updated home in the neighborhood, everybody else hasn't touched their home in 20 years, then that Zestimate is more than likely to be off by a pretty significant amount because, again, Zillow doesn't have that information with all those photos and all the descriptions showing all the work you've done to the property. So if your home is more of a median in terms of what the rest of the homes around you look like, it's going to be a little bit more accurate. Now, if you're in a condo complex, this makes it even easier because often there's going to be 5 or 6 model match homes that have sold in your neighborhood in the last couple months that you're going to be able to easily compare the condition to. And for condos in general, most people aren't blowing hundreds of thousands of dollars to redo their condo. So usually condo complexes tend to have similar prices, whether it's a little bit updated or hasn't been touched in a while. You're not seeing a giant difference in those price ranges. So usually with condo complexes, it's going to be a little bit more accurate as well because they have the exact same square footage, the exact same floor plan, the exact same HOA. And again, typically the upgrades are going to be similar with a lot of the units in that same complex. Now, the last thing you could really look at to figure out how accurate that Zestimate is going to be is how many homes have sold in your neighborhood over the last 6 months. If there's only been 1 or 2 sales, Zillow just doesn't have a lot of data in your neighborhood, and that Zestimate is more than likely to be off by a larger amount. However, if a bunch of homes have sold around you recently, especially in the last 3 months, then that Zestimate is more than likely to be a little bit more accurate because, again, Zillow has more data to go off of and put in the algorithm to give you a more accurate number. So now let's go ahead and shift to the active side of things. So once the home hits the market and those Zestimates get a lot more accurate just in general, if you're a buyer looking at a home and you see that Zestimate on Zillow, can you rely on that number? Well, pretty much everything we just discussed about the off-market side of things is going to be how to determine if that number is going to be accurate on the on-market side of things as well. So is the home you're looking at similar to other homes that have sold in that neighborhood over the last couple months, or is it really different, either worse or better? The more similar it is to the other homes that have sold in the neighborhood, the more likely it is to be accurate. The number of homes that have sold in the neighborhood recently is also going to increase the accuracy. So if you go back and look at homes that are sold, and there is a bunch of them, again, you're going to have a more accurate Zestimate. And then finally, if you're looking at a condo complex, those tend to be a little bit more accurate just because they have those model match floor plans that tend to sell more frequently around the area. So they're going to be a little bit more accurate. Now, that's not to say that a single family home that's in a giant community that's cookie cutter that has those model match homes to compare is not going to be as accurate. However, it all is going to come back down to the updates because in single family homes, there tends to be a wider range in the amount of updates and the money people put in their homes than when you go to condo complexes. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out how accurate those estimates are going to be. So before we get to the final topic, just real quick again, if you're finding this type of content useful, please consider hitting that subscribe button because I put out new content like this every single week. And if you have any family or friends that also might find this useful, please consider sharing it as well. It would mean the world to me. Okay, so the last thing I want to touch on is what if you have a home, you go on Zillow, and you find that the Zillow information, either it's the bedrooms, the square footage, something about the property is incorrect. Is there a way you can fix that? Well, the answer is yes. Again, Zillow has a page for this where you can go on, claim the home that you live in, and then you can update those facts, and that should eventually update the Zestimate as well. So that way your Zestimate is more accurate. Now, do you need to do this? No, because once you put your home on the market, all those facts that might have been incorrect should be updated by the new information in the MLS as long as your agent inputs it correctly. However, just for a peace of mind, if you want that information updated, Zillow allows you to do that. All you have to do is go to the website. Again, I'll list it below in the description. Click it, claim ownership, and you can change what you need to be able to get that to reflect a more accurate number of what your home might be worth. Now, before I sign off, 2 things. If you have sold a home recently and you know what your Zestimate was, I would love to hear how accurate it actually ended up being once you got your home sold. Please put that in the comments below. And then number 2, if you ever have any questions about the housing market and you just want to understand a little bit more about the market, what it takes to buy or sell in Orange County in today's market, feel free to set up a 30-minute discovery call with me anytime, completely free. You can click the link below, get access to my calendar, and book a time that's convenient for you. So until next week, everybody stay healthy, stay happy, and I'll see you on the next show. Bye, everyone.